This is Daily Wonder, Jennifer.
And I'm Rebecca.
And there's Crystal. How quick was that? That was awesome. We must be good at this.
Yeah, awesome. It worked.
Yeah,
Yay.
amazing. So we're here because we want to talk about Waldorf education and just how we each found out about it, and just kind of a general overview of how our programs complement each other, and just share a bit about each other's programs, and then talk about rhythm and routine because it's the start of a school year and it's a hot topic for Waldorf education and school in general. And so yeah, we wanted to first of all say that it's so interesting to us that Waldorf education is the biggest independent school grassroots movement in the world, like thousands of Waldorf schools everywhere, but it's still amazing to us how often people have never heard of it. So
yeah,
and I think people that find it, it's like a destiny thing, and it's always really interesting to hear everybody's little story of like how they first heard about it. So could you tell us your Waldorf discovery story?
Yeah, it's a little bit long, so I'll condense it down. So basically, after high school, I was traveling. I had no direction in life, zero. So I was just traveling around, and we ended up in a country where we needed to work because we had no money. And there was a Waldorf school there that had like a parent and taught program. And I had no clue at this point what it was or anything like that. But I needed the money and it looked interesting. So I joined up to basically just be a helper, like an extra set of hands. And then from there, I started learning about it. And I was like, this is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. I'm big into theory, and I really love just all the theories of different things. So I studied it while I was there. I got to learn under them, which was just a beautiful blessing because they didn't have to do that for me. But I kind of just left it on a shelf after that because we were still doing other things, and I was young, and we were still doing all sorts of things. But when I left the school, all trained up, they gave me this huge stack of books, and I felt bad because I was traveling and couldn't bring them with me. Oh. So I mailed them home, mailed them to my parents, and then literally years later, when I started looking at a career for myself, I pulled them back out. And then I just kind of went from there. So yeah, it was a complete destiny thing. It was totally by accident. And it just stuck in my heart and stayed there. And now it influences pretty much every program we do.
Amazing. I love it.
Story. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to share yours?
Yeah, similarly, I knew nothing about Waldorf until my 20s. And then I was I had a degree, and I was looking into getting some teacher training, and I was just coming up against blocks and blocks and blocks, and it just wasn't working. Doors weren't opening. And then my sister had young kids, and she was homeschooling, and she had connected with a local teacher who was a Waldorf trained teacher. And she called me and she said, "You just got to check out Waldorf. It's so it's so artistic, it's so spiritual and aligned with your values. Just check it out." And so I checked it out, and it all made sense, and it came together after that.
Mm-hmm. And my story has like a similar start to yours, Crystal. Like it was after university, early 20s, kind of wandering around, had no direction, and I was waitressing at a restaurant, and my coworker there had a girlfriend, and we went out all together, and I was like, I think 23 or 24, just kind of awakening to like, oh, there's more to life, but I don't really know what it is, but I think there's more to life than whatever I've been living. And I met this girl, and she had started talking about her education, and like, I've never seen anybody proud of their high school and their public school. And she was just going on about what they did. And she was so awake and aware. And like, I was oh my God, she's only 18. And I'm like, where did you go to school? And she said, Waldorf. And I'd never heard of it. And it was like filed in the back of my mind. And then 4 years later, I was like, I think I need to teach, but I just can't see myself fitting in with the public system. And then that Waldorf like popped up in my head. I'm like, what is that anyway? So I went online, and there were only 2 training centers in Canada, and one was like 20 minutes from my house in Toronto. And I walked in, and it was like lazured walls, and it's like, I'm home. This is it. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I love those destinations.
Yeah. I think that's how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like you have a calling, and it, whether you want to find it or not, it finds you. So
Yeah. We used to like kind of discuss that a lot whenever we were trying to market for our school. And there was always this feeling like, well, it's kind of a destiny thing. Like families will find it if they need to find it. And maybe that's
So
why
true.
it's so well known. Like it's so popular, but so many people have never heard of it. It's interesting.
yeah, or there's a lot of misconception when they do hear about it, or it's overwhelming because it is a large concept.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nice if you can make it, put a face to it, break it down, make it less overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know, right? Like after all this time, it's when somebody says, well, what is Waldorf education? It's like asking what's yoga or what's something. Like it's so big, you can't name it in like a sentence, but you get to practice like all the different ways that you might try to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think there's just like any new thing a parent is going to try in terms of education for their child, there's the fear
Mhm.
about what is that going to work for me? Will I like that? So I think if you're able to be in the community and put a face to things and just say, we get that, like I absolutely get that, and we're here for questions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I guess like we all live on Vancouver Island. So somehow I think through Instagram, we started following each other and realized you're in Parksville and we're in
Yes.
Valley. So, and like your programming, if you could just tell us like a little bit more about your different offerings, because we felt like, oh wow, we complement each other so well.
Mm-hmm. We have basically two branches. We have a homeschool Waldorf session, which is like a pod, a learning pod, and then an outdoor education program, which we started because I wanted to bring our Waldorf learning outdoors with us. And then it took off from there. It became very popular. People were really looking for an opportunity to ground their children and thus help their family create some sense of grounding as well. And that helped out a lot with that. So yeah, we have both of those offerings. They are both heavily Waldorf influenced.
Mhm.
And just like you guys, we have tied a lot of our programming to the BC curriculum outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you guys have a curriculum that's already done and super simple for parents, and that our program, particularly our outdoor program, really complements that. And I also love that parents, because our homeschool sessions are not every day of the week. So often parents will say, help, I'm new, I don't know what to do for the other days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really lovely to find a curriculum that I can say, this is super aligned with where we already are at. Have a look at this and see how you feel about it. And because I've had an extensive look at your curriculum offerings, I'm able to then help them a little bit if they run through, like, I don't understand this part, or what does this look like in application versus theory? So I love it. I love that it is so cohesive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for us, like we often feel like we want to encourage as much community building and as much socializing for the kids as possible. So for, at least for our members close by here on the island, like for them to go once a week and join a science or an outdoor program, it's like, it's so perfect for us.
Mhm.
Yeah, and because we really want to, sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think parents sometimes they just are looking for something that's already in existence, so they don't have to create it themselves from scratch every time.
Mm-hmm.
So parents who find us are looking for something like your program as well, like that they can sign up for something that exists and they can attend and find community there. It's a good
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to say that for me, I feel that if you can create a good continuity between your academic work and your other learning experiences, you really get the best opportunity for optimal learning.
Yeah.
So finding programs that complement each other and have the same learning pedagogy, because a child will respond best to something they know. It's a lovely opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like you said, with parents like carrying half of the teaching responsibility, let's say, or whatever percentage,
Sure.
like, to have that continuity to know like, okay, this is when this is the timeline of how everything's going to get covered, and I'm responsible for these parts, and everything's moving fluidly between the teacher
Mm-hmm.
and the homeschool part. It's like, that's something that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I absolutely am thrilled that there are so many opportunities popping up for families to really customize learning
Yeah.
in a way that can work and not be like so onerous and stressful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess our big, like focus would be rhythm and routine this time of year. So, I don't know. Did you want to?
Yeah, I mean,
sure.
it's back to school time, right? So people are looking for ways to set up their year for success. It seems like September's the time of kind of the end of the heat of summer that draws us out. We're kind of like starting to go inward a little bit, set things up, look at the year and find some anchors to try to create routine around. So tell us a little bit about how you approach that subject. How does that work for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, because I have a child of my own that I am still homeschooling. So we have a rhythm that actually begins last week. And we time it. So we have this beautiful maple in our backyard. When it starts to shed the first leaves, we know it's time to start looking at bringing everything back down and starting to work on our homeschool work. So I actually spend the time before that getting ready because I know he's going to see that and know that it's time. And that's something about rhythm, right? Like every year we know that's coming.
Yeah.
So I don't have to say to him, get in here, it's time for us to sit down and really put our head into this work. It's intrinsic in his body now.
Yeah.
He has an indicator, he knows. And so that's something that rhythm is really important for, right? And you would know that. And so that's what we do. And then I do it 2 weeks before September start, because once September starts, I'm into all of my programming and I have a lot of other students to think about. And I cannot be trying to establish a routine at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for other families, I don't know what it looks like for everybody because it's so personal. But I do suggest that families don't wait until the first week of September to start that planning and to start getting that rhythm in, whatever it might be for you. Because I think public school and what a lot of us grew up with said that September, after the Labor Day long weekend, that's when everything needed to hit the ground running, right? But for me personally, that's quite chaotic. I don't want to. I'm actually feeling very overwhelmed just with like everybody else's back to school crazy pressure. So I can't imagine just having to wait as a homeschool parent.
Yeah, it's like that parent preparation happens a few weeks before the child kind of gets into the swing of it, right? And that preparation of just looking ahead and thinking about some of those indicators. Like I love that idea of the maple leaves falling as an indicator, one of those anchors of the rhythm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's lots along the way. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. And it's like, it just kind of speaks again to this Waldorf approach, which is less talk and more symbolism and ritual and like, other things that indicate it's time to shift rather than, like you said, get in here and like open your book and let's get going. It's not very, creative and deep feeling. Yeah.
And the body's not ready, right? If you just sit a child down suddenly who has had all summer in a different type of rhythm, you can make them do something, but the body is revolting, right? It's just like, I wasn't here. It just didn't have that blend into that.
Which is like we really have to honor that in ourselves. And I think that's like what you're both saying, like for the parent to make that shift so that there isn't resistance, like to move at the pace that they know works for them and to like have these pieces in place so that they can hold space so that their child will now make that transition. So much of it is like, can I hold space? Can I hold that routine? Whether there's a little bit of resistance or not, knowing that like we always, rhythm routine, like give it 6 weeks, you'll be in a new place, like end of October. It's worth it. Stay true to what you know is going to work, like what will be beautiful for the whole family.
And something that remains the same year to year for us, because we do our work in the mornings before I start classes with my other groups. So that hour in the morning is our time to do our work. and we always have like a special drink and a snack together as we're working through. So before we start our year, we go to the thrift store and my child picks out a mug that he will have his like hot chocolate in, or whatever he's having, his tea. And so all of these are indicators, right? They're all indicators of we're moving into that time. We're making a gentle shift into a more dedicated learning practice without being abrupt, because you will get resistance if you are abrupt. Nobody likes being shifted quickly.
Yeah.
Especially from this mode.
Yeah.
From summer.
Yeah.
We use a lot of these routine builders in our daily lesson plans, like having the verse to start, using these routines that are the same every day, even though the new content changes, right? And it's built upon.
Yes.
These routines really, they eliminate the conflict, and they just build this kind of rhythm, like the waves on the ocean. It's the same every day that carries you along through the learning. And it sounds like we're doing the same thing in our programming and in our curriculum.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to mention that, because like when people talk about rhythm and routine, a lot of it is based on your child and like just creating a nice environment for your child. But we have to remember that that also sets a lovely internal clock for yourself.
Yes.
And then when you are in that mode and you are content and happy to move forward, you are creating that space. Versus if you're harried and, oh gosh, I didn't plan that lesson, I didn't get my things ready, whatever. And we can't be perfect and we can't plan lessons all the time. And sometimes you forget supplies, but having some trust in yourself and knowing, oh, you know what, we're just moving into these rhythms. It's okay to leave that. Your child will feel more comfortable in that situation.
Yeah. And like having those few anchored pieces, even if not everything, like if your content isn't all set, but like having the songs you've chosen that as a parent you love, and they fill your heart, and that brings that joy and confidence and, like a ground for the children. That's such a huge important piece in those first few weeks. And knowing that you can repeat these things year to year, certain structures, the same way we love the same festivals and holidays every year. Like you don't tire of the same beautiful songs and stories because they're so meaningful. So there's like a certain amount of things that can and should be repeated that really help the child.
Yeah, and I noticed that and sometimes it's things you don't think about. Like in our outdoor program, we have this lovely cook space over the fire, and I try every week to bring something we can cook together, but some weeks get busy and I don't have time to go to the store and get these things. And I'll notice that that's one thing the kids will always ask when they arrive: what are we going to cook today? And that has become a very grounding central part of that for most of them.
Right.
So if I forget it does throw them off.
Right.
They are they're thrown off.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Such a gift when you've established the rhythm and they know it internally, and then that feeling of like you holding the reins or like holding it so tightly you can let go, and it's just flowing. Like one activity ends and they all know we put this away and we go to this spot, and like it's such a beautiful thing to witness, and especially like in a Waldorf environment, this gift of like transitions that are just flowing after this 6 to 8 week period, So
yeah, and it's truly amazing how that works, because it looks like compliance.
Yeah, right.
But it is actually just thing like that's the difference between, because I've worked in both. I've worked in public school classrooms, and I have worked in other classrooms, and I've run my own programs. And there can be things that look like they're happening in a very similar way, but the method to achieving those was drastically different. Right. So it's important to remember that it's not a bad thing if it looks like your child is just very compliant and going from one thing to the other in a Waldorf scenario, because it has been created in a way that honors each person and honors each person's needs and wants.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. I often bring that up to parents because there's a feeling that parents want their children to have freedom and freedom of choice and all that, which yes, there's a time and place for that, but the Waldorf method is more this loving authority figure that has created this attachment and love for these children who says, follow me, like I know the way, and it's a beautiful way. So when you want the children, it's not like you're saying they're just automatons compliant. They need
and they need it. They need the boundary. When you understand the expectation, the anxiety dissipates.
Exactly.
And we are living in a time where children are at an all-time high with anxiety concerns. Now more than ever, it is important to create programming and curriculum options that can help parents help their children through that, so we're not seeing it into the future.
Yeah.
Exactly. Your analogy with the fence is always perfect, right?
Right. Yeah. Where like you might have a puppy you've just got and you don't have a fence and you're always managing the behavior of the puppy and trying to work with the puppy. But the minute you put up a fence, you can kind of let go of that and the dog just gets to do dog business in there and you get to, you know, have these positive experiences with the dog because you're not managing this other space. So once these boundaries are in place, it kind of frees you up. It frees up the child to do the work of being a child. It frees up the parent to do the work of being the parent because that boundary exists in their routine.
And you can explore like up to those edges and it's so healthy. Amazing.
Yeah,
I feel like we could go on and on, but I have plans to do other live chats coming up, so we will get to talk again. But so just to end now, we're each kind of offering something to each other's members at this point. And I believe that you're offering to our members one of the, can you tell me, because I forget now, one of the programs?
Yeah, so we want to obviously make sure before somebody is really committing that they love what they're doing if they're going to come from somewhere farther away. And we do have families coming from your area to our programs, but Daily Wonder Learning families can utilize one free session of our Tuesday program or the Friday program to see how they're feeling about that and if it is a good fit for their families.
Right, amazing. So if they want to go on your website, is it underthearch.com?
Yeah, it's underthearchoutdoor.com.
Underthearchoutdoor.com, and then they can check out those two programs and see.
Yeah, they can check it out. If they have a younger child, I think perhaps if you have some kindergarten children, there is another program. It's called Pip and Pine, and it is geared toward that 4 to 5 range. So they're welcome to also utilize that program.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that one because it has little Waldorf doll characters, and I don't think I've ever outgrown those. So.
I know, it's so beautiful. And then Daily Wonder is offering your members one free unit. So if they want the same idea, like we want your members to see what is possible if they want to use Daily Wonder with, going to your program. So you could look on our website and dailywonderhomelearning.com, but it's you can see all the different units and pick like a Waldorf unit that suits the age of your child, and that would be our offering. So
that's so fun. I'm actually really excited about that. I spent some time going through the units, and I was like, "Ooh, what would I pick?" Like,
I know.
What would I like?
Yeah.
So. There's lots of great offerings there, so I don't think that there'll be any trouble finding one that works.
Yeah, nice.
Amazing. Well, it's so nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it's so nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
I look forward to doing more together and having more chats and just letting more people join in and see what everything's all about.
Exactly. So we'll be back doing something maybe about literacy and reading styles in Waldorf education coming up in maybe a few weeks. We'll see what we can schedule.
Sure, sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, have a great day.
All right. Yeah, enjoy your day, ladies.